Hello and welcome back, this is ProTaleDev. Today we're going to be looking at something a little bit different than Dungeon Architect. This is going to be related to it, but this is actually going to be looking at Blender, the program I use, which is free to create models, low polygon models, things for my game. What I've done is I've spent the last week, with the time I had, creating some little monsters to use, as well as a villager. And this is going to be used to go into our game and going to be the monsters in the dungeons as well as the raids. This isn't all of the monsters, this is only some of them. I haven't had time to complete them all yet, but we've got quite a few things here to show. So the first thing is our devil. So right here we got teeth, we got our little standard little red devil here, and it's obviously a nice small little creature with horns. This guy's very square, very blocky, and that's kind of the theme I wanted to go for with this low poly game. I don't know, I think it'll fit the dungeon really well. So what I did was I modeled this first section and had it mirrored, so auto mirror was on, and just edited this model. The teeth I did separately, so they're their own objects. So if I just check my collection here, which is essentially just a group of objects. So we have our young body, the young monster body, and then we have the lower teeth, upper teeth, and this is basically all I did. It's very simple design, very straightforward, and then we have just the teeth. Now I've done these teeth separately to the object. This is so that I can animate them moving, so I can just, when I'm in Unity, just have them animated and move or rotate, just for a little bit of extra. Let's move on to the next one. So the next one is our flesh demon. So this is the next level up from this guy, and it looks a lot more creepier. And as you can see, what we've got is like we've got this rib cage effect coming out, and we've got this kind of rigid bone like emptiness where this ribs were. It's kind of more slender and open. We've also got no teeth. Instead we got these rib cages that are going to be there to break and crush. We still got the same kind of eyes and still got his little eyebrows and nose, so it's roughly similar, but instead of the back we've got a more curved back as well. I think it looks more much more terrifying. This is all just one object, so they're not separated like the teeth were. These ribs that are coming out are connected to the actual monster itself. Moving on, what we got next is the next one up, the Prime Devil. I took a little bit of inspiration from the Dungeon Farm Tycoon, but mostly this is all unique. These are actually two separate objects. So we have the bottom and the top, and this is so that I can have it move with its jaw. I wanted 2 rows of teeth so that I can have them slide left to right on opposite sides. So if one's going that way, the other one at the back would go the other. And I think it would give a really interesting cut-in, terrifying effect for the teeth. So we got four objects for the teeth, and then the 2 bodies. Going away from the monsters, this is something I wanted to play around with. We have the villager, no hair because I want to do different styles of hair that are randomized. But what we got here is we've got our model, we've done a t-shirt and pants, and then we got shoes or feet, and then we got hands, and we got the head. It just has these type of eyes. Just simple. Just tried to keep it as simple as possible, and I'm just gonna have it randomized. This is the villager model essentially. It's not gonna have anything special on it. There's obviously going to be a knight, a mage, and a dragonkin, but I haven't done those yet, and so this is just a starter. It's very simple. I'm not even sure if I'll keep it, but for now this is what I've got. We also have rigging, so I had to go at rigging again because it's been a while since I've rigged, and so I thought I'd give it a go. If I quickly show off right here, pose mode, and then quickly show it moving, you'll see that it does work. Obviously the paint weights aren't 100% yet. They are definitely need a lot of work, but as you can see, we can bend the knee and we can move it as we like. We can also, what we can do is we can move different parts of the body and rotate that, and things like the arm we can also rotate and move. There isn't much more that I've done with it yet apart from this. The intention is to have the materials randomized as well. Like I said, the hair needs to be done. I'm not even sure if I'll keep this type of model. I might try and do something a little bit different. Next thing is something very simple. You may recognize this again based on the sprite. We have the Dark Mage. Very simple. Very spooky, very creepy. It's slowly going to move towards you. It's got this sort of robe hanging over it. And you can see the big white eyes inside this like dark aspect in the center. I think it's very straightforward, but it does its job. I really like it. It's very creepy. It's very basic. It took the least amount of time of all of them, but I think it looks very nice. Decided to remove the plant troll and gone for the Ark Brute. The reason for this is to try and keep it connected to the other orcs that are going to be in this as an option to place down, but also because I have another plant related monster that I'm bringing into this, and so I didn't want them to overlap too much. It's very simple though. This is all just one object. We have the individual teeth in here. We have the eyes. Let me just press this. Going to focus on it. We have the really big eyes, so it'll be easier to see. We've also switched the colours from black and white. We've also got teeth that are coming out, just very standard of an orc. We have a strap which is holding up the pants, as well as these huge arms which potentially will be holding something like a giant club, or maybe they'll just be there but they'll be like a slam attack. Next we have what's replacing the plant aspect of that. I did want a plant monster. And so what I've decided to use is this low poly flower that we have. If you don't recognize this, that's fine. It's been a while since we've used this. I actually made this for the Corrupt in Spring enhanced version. This was going to be a boss. However, I ended up not using it because I ran out of time. I hit my deadline that I was planning for, and I just didn't get time to implement a boss fight into it. This was essentially going to be a boss fight for it. I figured I might as well use it since it is low poly and I did spend a lot of time on it. I've even rigged it, and so it makes sense for me to actually give this a go again. You'll see that while it is low poly, it does have a lot of detail on it, so I think it's going to be really interesting to have this as a huge flower rather than just a small enemy, because we could even have this as a boss potentially. I think this could be a really cool thing in the dungeon that you find and have to fight. The next creature is going to be the Phase Ring monster, and this is a creature that I created for Corrupting Spring as well. And what I've done is I've made this guy. He's going to fit into the game similar way to what we've done. He's going to be kind of a stationary creature, potentially shooting beams from these rings, or potentially maybe he's going to be a very slow moving object, slow moving monster, and he's just going to maybe shoot these rings or a laser, one of those things. The idea also was that the center pieces were going to have lights on them, which would determine when they're going to shoot. So you have this centerpiece, which is where a light would be, and then the top part would be like an eye. As you can see, there's lots of pieces to this object, so there's lots of parts that can be animated. The next thing is the phase eye. So the phase eye is something that's just going to follow you, kind of like how the stone golem's ability is to create these like sentries. This guy is just going to follow you around, and he's actually just going to be a really irritating, potentially a debuffer, and something that I have planned for him is he's going to debuff the player and then just run away back to wherever he can hide. So whether that's a bunch of rocks or just a room or something like a phase would do, so maybe he just phases through a wall and then he maybe respawns somewhere else. The whole point of him is that he's going to do something to the player that will weaken him or distract him, and then try and run away and then come back and do it again. So this guy's going to be a very irritating enemy to fight. So the phase eye, the phase ring, and the plant monster were all creatures that were created in the game Corrupting Spring that was solely a first-person shooter ranged combat aspect. That was what they were designed for, and so that's what I wanted to bring them in for this especially, is so that the player has to range attack them and use their range to really defeat them. They won't the idea is that it'll be either very difficult to get to them to melee them, or that they'll just escape, like this guy will just run away and you won't really get a chance to melee them at all. The next thing is the giant vine. So this is either going to be an extension of the giant flower monster, or it's going to be its own little monster that you're going to find in certain dungeons. But this guy is also rigged in the same way as the flower, so I'm not going to show it off. And so we got the last thing that I worked on, which is the goblin fighter. Right here, very simple design, very straightforward. Didn't take too much work on it. It has no arms at the moment. I wasn't too sure if I was going to put arms on him because he's supposed to be holding the trap that he puts down. So I might actually have that as a separate object, and then have the arm with the trap, so I can animate the arm individually placing stuff down. But essentially, if you remember what the goblin does, the masked goblin is what it's replacing. And what it's going to do is, you can see it's got some tools in here. What it's going to do is it's going to place down traps, and then it's going to try and run away. It's going to try. I figured that the masked goblin in the original dungeon form, I got a little bit of feedback from a few people I know that they didn't really like it, because what the trap would do is just place a trap down, and then they could just walk over the trap and just attack the goblin, and then the trap's gone. And the trap is no longer really useful. It's just in the room and it's gone. The whole point was that this guy would place traps all over the place, and until you defeated them in your radius. However, he doesn't do that, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it so that he either puts himself in some kind of like box to hide himself and you've got to try and attack the box, or I'm going to make it so that he has like a trap down and he runs away. Not 100% sure. I don't want too many enemies just running away. I think it would just annoy the player too much. Only a couple of enemies should do it. But we'll see. We'll try and play around with the goblins aspect as well. Of course, this is multiple objects, so we got the 4 hammers as separate objects, just easier to model, and then we have the main body. Okay, so that's everything I want to show in Blender at the moment. I want to create a bunch more monsters, but for now, this is what I've got. We still got to work on weapons and the more villagers, the NPCs you can play as. But for now, that's what I've got so far. What I'm most likely going to do is I'm going to be jumping between Blender and Unity, just as a little bit of a break through videos. So what I'll do is I'll jump into Unity for the next week, just to maybe implement some of these, or even work on something a little bit separate. And then the next video after that will probably be me in Blender again, working on the rest of the monsters, potentially looking at some of these weapons, and then jumping back. So I'll be doing that for all the videos. So this has been ProTaleDev, and I'll see you next time.